Hello and welcome to the CT Cloud podcast. I'm your host, Kade Herbert. Joining us today, we have some guests from Sight and Sound Theaters, which is one of our customers out on the East Coast of America, and also in Missouri as well, Pennsylvania and Missouri. Sight and Sound Theaters. Rob Taylor is joining us. He's the director of IT at Sight and Sound. And Matthew Miles is joining us. He's the system administrator and the IT supervisor for Sight and Sound. So, Rob and Matthew, go ahead and introduce yourselves. I'll go with you first, Rob.
Sure. So, as you say, Rob Taylor, been with Sight and Sound for 7 years, and Sight and Sound as a company, we're a live theatre company predominantly, although we are branching into different media. We just launched a films division, so we'll be releasing our first feature film later here in 22. But the company's about somewhere between 7 and 750 folks between the two locations. And we try to stay as up to date with our technology as we possibly can and make the right decisions, around cost relative to functionality. I feel like that's our focus.
Yeah. That sounds great, and it sounds like you guys have some exciting stuff coming up. Moving to feature film, that's a big step. There's a lot of different changes in production, so I imagine that's very exciting and maybe a little bit scary, but that kind of goes into the whole technology thing. Like, hey, we gotta stay with the times. We gotta make sure our technology is up to snuff in order to stay competitive. So that makes a lot of sense. Matthew, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Yeah, like Rob, I'm the we're primarily like a live theater venue, and we've got two locations, one in the Lancaster, Pennsylvania location, then I'm in our Branson, Missouri location. So essentially like Rob out here, where we just do a second theater. So Rob and I work very, very closely together and try to keep both theaters running operating as much the same as possible.
There you go. Well, yeah, I imagine there's a lot of interaction. Like there's calls are going back and forth between Pennsylvania and Missouri all the time. So I imagine communication is very important to make sure both theaters are up and running and running in a similar fashion, because you want to have that brand. You want to maintain your brand. You want to make sure that both locations are operating on a competitive level. So
absolutely
makes a lot of sense. All right. So tell me, what challenges were you having with your communication system, maybe that led to rethinking how your strategy was going to work? Like, did you see that maybe your bill was a little bit higher than you wanted, or maybe you had overlapping technologies that weren't working? Tell me a little bit more about that.
Sure. Or Rob, do you want to take a stab at that?
Sure, I can respond a little bit. I definitely would want to hear your position too, Matt. Yeah, I think for us it was a combination of things. So the billing is always something that we consider and look at and just see, are we staying competitive, and yet at the same time seeing the features that we need. And also, I think honestly, the back office work in terms of actual maintenance and day-to-day functionality, like are our team being taxed more than they need to be? If the product's not fully functioning the way we need it to, then we really just try to say, okay, hey, we've got a life cycle of this product. When that comes due, let's make sure we're reviewing and seeing what's out there. And I think the team does a great job of just staying abreast with what's in the world of technology, in terms of updates. And I think we just recognized that it was time for the opportunity to essentially get better features for a better price, and minimize the work the team was having to do.
Absolutely. Matthew, do you want to speak to that?
No, that actually is kind of pretty spot on. It was with our on-prem solution, we were coming to the end of that life cycle change. So we knew there was going to be lots of licensings to repurchase. There was other, things with dedicated zip trunks that were going to have to be renewed. All the phone hardware was going to have to be replaced. So we were in a prime spot to really go out and look to see what the options were. And when we found CallTower, we're like, well, this is kind of perfect. So and
Awesome.
we were able to save a good chunk of money through the process. So that was just a win for everybody.
Excellent. Well, that's exactly what we love to hear. We love to hear that we check all the boxes, and kind of as Rob said, the billing part of it is interesting because the longer I'm in telecom, the longer I realize that billing is a huge part of the equation, right? Like you don't really think about that going in. You're like, oh, does the technology work? Is it gonna be well adopted with our users? But making sure that the billing process works is a huge step in making and not getting like four bills from four places, one bill, a small bill hopefully, right? Making sure that it all works out for everyone. So that makes sense. So we talked a little bit about how about CallTower really fit what you were looking for. Can you tell me about some of the factors that CallTower, some of the boxes that we checked off, if you will?
One of the big ones was, of course, through the pandemic, switching to Microsoft Teams, and
Yeah.
just that major adoption of Teams and how we just kind of really kickstarted our adoption of Teams through that. And then now to have our
Mhm.
phone system integrated through that was just huge.
Absolutely, yeah. That makes a lot of sense. We at Call Tower, we had a similar thing. Like we all worked in the office, except for a few of our salespeople worked outside of our office. But we had that same curve, and it was really great to see that Microsoft Teams really stepped up to the challenge for us as a company. And getting Teams enabled in that is just one less step for people to use. Instead of having your phone and your Teams and maybe even like an instant messaging system up and running, like it's all in one place. It's so much simpler, so that makes a lot of sense. All right, very cool. Okay, so you started transitioning from your on-premise system with your standard phones to the call towers Microsoft Teams solution. What have the results been since you've made the transition? How have things been going? Has adoption been good with your users? Tell me about that.
From the Branson location, absolutely, adoption has just been unbelievable. I've even just from our security team, even just the fact of how easy they can reach people now going through Teams and having their, quote unquote desk phone with them at all the times,
Yeah.
and just the sheer mobility it's giving people, to work from home now, and the adoption's just been absolutely amazing. I'm hearing nothing but good from
Oh,
the people
good.
here.
That is great to hear. Has the situation been similar in the Pennsylvania location, Rob?
Yeah, I would definitely echo what Matt's saying. I think, honestly, one of the standout features too that I felt in the whole deployment was the minimal amount of disruption from, essentially we did a cutover of the system once we'd done a lot of work in terms of config and getting the different elements in place. But
Mm-hmm.
the teams at both ends, we came in actually on, what was it, Memorial Day, Matt? Or
Yep, Memorial Day.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, so we came in on Memorial Day and basically just walked, did the sweep of the building, basically switching everything out from a hardware perspective. And to then come back in the Tuesday and really, I mean, I think we fielded maybe a handful of connections from people. But for the most part, people just carried on working and were very, cognizant of, we'd send out videos and little bits and pieces of communication about how to use the new system. But
Mm-hmm.
as Matt was saying, like because our folks were familiar with Teams, it just felt like there was a great synergy there. And I would definitely say that we've had by far more positive responses around the solution and the fact that people don't have a piece of hardware sitting on their desk that they just don't need anymore.
Yeah.
Getting the space back and at the same time gaining some of the, it's amazing how many folks are like, wait, it can do what? Those kind of
Yeah, for sure.
responses. So,
It's great
yeah,
to have the help desk
it's
tickets be more like, how do I set up my voicemail again?
Yeah.
Those type of simple questions versus, some of the, hey, this just doesn't work. And it's
Right.
fantastic.
yeah,
Excellent. Yeah, it sounds like it was a very natural transition, which is like It's such a relief, I can imagine, because you have those nightmare scenarios in your head. You're like, oh man, what if A, B, and C doesn't work? But I'm glad to hear that it went pretty well. Kind of along those same lines, have there been any challenges that you guys have faced with CallTower since you made the big move, or have things mostly been smooth?
I'm
I
just
don't feel
trying to
like
even.
anything significant. How about you,
Okay.
Matt?
I'm trying to think of a challenge, and I really haven't had one.
That
Like if we've had a question, support has just been top notch, just on top of it. Through the implementation, our implementation engineer was just absolutely amazing. It
Yes, a
they were
definite
able to,
shout out to Andy. That was
yeah.
Andy, yeah, Andy's great. I love Andy.
incredible.
We love working
Yeah.
with him. So excellent. Well, that's great news. Music to my ears all across the board. It's excellent to hear. Um, all right. Well, I think that's actually everything that I have for you guys today. Thank you so much for joining us, and tune in next time for the CT Cloud podcast. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll talk to you guys next time.